Imagine spending 10 months of your life meticulously planning every single detail of your dream day. You pick the perfect manor house in Shropshire, you spend $26,000 on the finest food and entertainment, and you finally stand before your favorite people to say, I do. For Claire and James Kelly, that was the reality on February 20th. They had just finished their ceremony. The energy was high, and they were finally ready to relax and celebrate their new life together. But as they sat down for their wedding breakfast, the in sickness and in health part of their vows was about to be tested much sooner than anyone expected. James was sitting at the head of the table, looking like the happiest man in the world, when a sudden, sharp pain shot through his abdomen. At 31 years old, he figured it was just nerves or maybe trapped gas from the excitement. He didn't say a word to Claire, he didn't want to ruin the magic of the moment, but within 10 minutes, he went from perfectly fine to completely incapacitated. He slipped away from the table and headed upstairs, hoping a moment of quiet would help him recover. Downstairs, Claire was still lost in the joy of the reception, talking to family and enjoying the atmosphere. She had no idea her new husband was upstairs fighting for his life. It wasn't until her maid of honor pulled her aside with a look of pure panic that Claire realized something was wrong. When she walked into that room upstairs, the sight was terrifying. James was collapsed on the floor. He couldn't stand up, he couldn't move, and he was in so much pain he could barely communicate. In an instant, the dream wedding turned into a medical emergency. The scene that followed was surreal. An ambulance pulled up to the manor house, and Claire, still in her white wedding gown, climbed inside with James. She didn't think to change, she didn't grab her bags, she just wanted to be with him. Imagine the sight at the hospital. A bride in a full wedding dress walking through the ER doors while her husband is rushed back for tests. After blood work and a CT scan, the doctors delivered the shocking news. James was suffering from acute appendicitis. This wasn't just a stomach ache, it was a serious internal emergency that required immediate surgery. While James and Claire were sitting in a sterile hospital room, they had to make a heartbreaking decision. They had over 100 guests back at the manor house and $26,000 worth of food and music already paid for. Knowing they couldn't get a refund and wanting their loved ones to at least enjoy the night, they told their guests to keep the party going. So, while the bride and groom spent their wedding night in a hospital ward, their guests were back at the venue eating the wedding breakfast and dancing the night away in their honor. It took a day and a half before James could finally go into surgery. Claire never left his side, sitting in that hospital room in the remnants of her wedding finery. When the surgeons finally operated, they discovered the situation was even worse than they thought. James's appendix was in a bad way, complicated by an abscess and a mass. It was a terrifying realization that what they thought was a ruined party was actually a life-saving intervention. If they had waited or ignored the pain, the outcome could have been tragic. James is now on the long road to recovery, but the emotional toll on the couple is heavy. They missed out on every tradition they had looked forward to. There was no first dance, there was no being introduced as Mr. and Mrs. Kelly to a cheering room, and no night in the luxurious bridal suite they had paid for. Instead of a honeymoon phase, they spent their first week of marriage navigating hospital halls and post-op care. Claire admits they are distraught over missing the celebration they worked so hard to save for, especially since they can't get their money back. But there is a silver lining to this story. Despite the trauma and the lost money, Claire says she is over the moon that at least they got the ceremony finished. They're already planning a second, smaller celebration in May so they can finally have that first dance and eat a meal together without an emergency room visit. Their story has gone viral as a reminder that love isn't just about the flowers and the fancy venues. It's about who stays by your side on the floor of a hospital room while the rest of the world is still partying. It was a wedding day they'll never forget, for all the wrong reasons, but it proved their marriage is built on a foundation that can handle anything.